It's because of them. It's not because of me. So we're going to be talking about AR, VR, and MR as it affects advertising and brands and consumer interaction. Similar ground rules to every other panel you've ever seen me do. It is interactive. You came to this session as opposed to 3 other sessions that are going on simultaneously. They are giving out free weed next door. No, I'm kidding. I was like, they're gone. Because you thought that you might learn something here today. If we don't get to what you came here for, you have to raise your hand and say, but what about such and such? If you leave here because we didn't talk about what you wanted to learn about, it's because you didn't raise your hand, okay? Okay. Ted, come on, whatever. Anyway, the other thing is whenever you have a question, raise your hand. The worst thing is, this is a 1-hour panel. 55 minutes from now, someone raises their hand and says, well, in your opening intro 40 minutes ago, somebody said whatever. What did they mean? So ask questions whenever you want. Do we have a mic for questions? We do not. We do not. So speak loudly. I'll repeat the question for the legendary whatever. This is, as I can figure, my 25th year doing panels for Victor. So if it seems a little casual, it's not casual. It's just comfortable. So as I probably do every time, I want everyone to introduce themselves in less than a minute, say what you currently do, how did you first get started in what you do, and how did you get into the business, who gave you your first break? So who took you from working at John Hancock Insurance and said, no, you'd be much better at publicist?
In less than a minute.
What?
In less than a minute.
Well, you have 2 minutes. A minute to talk about what you do now, and another minute to talk about how you got there. You're on.
Wow.
And talk into the mic because he wants to get every word for posterity.
My name's Grant Ogburn. I'm the head of client services for a group called TiltShift within the Publicis Group. So Publicis Group is the 3rd largest ad agency network in the world. I lead a group of people exploring XR, so AR, VR, mixed reality, and then CG pipeline development across 150 global agencies and their clients. I fell into this, I guess my big break was at 23 years old. I wanted to be a creative director. I was getting a master's in being a creative director, and then I met...
What school?
Washington State University.
They had a master's in being a creative director?
In advertising and technology.
Very cool.
I met an account rep for Wonderman, and he told me, you talk too much, you'll never be a creative director, you're going to be an account person. I spent 10 years at Microsoft working for Xbox as a marketing manager, and then joined a startup within Publicis Group about 3.5 years ago.
Very cool.
My name is Natasha French. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Ventana. We're a mixed reality company that specializes in creating interactive holograms. So you can see yourself in real time without the need of a mobile phone, without the need of a headset, holographically serve a tennis ball to a hologram of Roger Federer. He could hit it back to you, and then you get a lovely video that you can share on social. But with all of that, we can track data on that user from email, name, using facial recognition, sentiment, product preference, age range, and gender. So providing the brand a 360-degree view of the customer, but also providing the customer a very engaging experience. We also do a lot on the software end, so we're big believers in there's a lot of content out there, but it's not really meeting the needs of AR, VR, MR. So we've built a platform that enables brands to get their 3D assets, push them up to our cloud, and you can push those assets out now to holographic displays, mobile AR, and also headsets. How I got my break, I have a very, very crazy background, but started as a journalist at CNN, so by heart I'm a storyteller. Lived my life through a lot of helping build companies in the risk management side. And then when I moved back to LA, I started helping launch mobile apps. Probably launched every single parking app known to mankind. We probably don't need that many, but they're out there. And how I discovered Ventana, I was at a TEDx event. Our CEO was there, and she had a hologram next to her. I was very intrigued. I sent her a business plan the next day saying she needed marketing and PR help. 6 months later, I became the CMO, and the story goes from there.
When you met her, did you talk to the hologram by mistake, or did you talk to the...
Tempting.
Okay. Barry, what do you do?
What do I do?
Barry and I have done a few panels together.
Yeah, a few. Barry Sandrew, I'm COO and executive producer at South Bay Visual Effects. We do visual effects, DI, and 2D to 3D conversion. I also am a consultant for a company called Nextech AR Solutions. They're doing e-commerce, education, and also entertainment, and they just opened a new studio here in Hollywood called AR Studios, which I'm involved with. The person who gave me my start was Ted Turner, who allowed me to invent the process of colorizing black and white movies and destroying our American film heritage. But that got me out of academia and got me into Hollywood, and then I invented a process for converting movies from 2D to 3D and founded Legend 3D, and did my team has probably done about 60 of the highest performing feature films that have come out of Hollywood over the past 10 years.
So to insert, Barry's one of two people I met. I met Barry a couple of years ago, and he says, "What do you do?" "Oh, I worked with Van Halen, and I worked at EMI, and I did this, and I did that." "What did you do?" "I invented colorization and 3D processing." "Okay, you win." The other one was at UCLA a few years ago. I had the same conversation. "Look what I do." "And what did you do?" And he goes, "I'm Marty Cooper." Does anybody know who Marty Cooper is?
Oh, yes.
He invented the cell phone.
Yeah.
I literally got on my knees, bowed down, and went, "You win." Yeah. So Barry's done some very cool things and continues to do some very cool things.
Yeah, Marty's a good friend.
And is fun to go on a trip with.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Dan. I am the president of Laduma, which is a...
You go.
Hi, I'm
Your
Dan.
mic doesn't sound loud. Is it good? There we go.
There we go. Hi, I'm Dan. I'm the president of Laduma, which is a full-service immersive tech company. We do virtual and augmented reality and immersive projection. Some of our specialist products are, we've got a fully immersive floor-to-ceiling dome, and we have a dome without a dome where we do immersive projection in rooms and on trade show stands, and we're now working on some nice AR technology with Princess Leia technology, as we like to call it. I'm on my third career. I was a sports journalist for the first 10 years, ending up in Bermuda, and then I joined the British Diplomatic Service, and I worked for 12 years as a British diplomat and served in various places, and then because of a variety of things, including Brexit, I decided I wanted to try a non-government world, and I got offered a job working for a sports betting company, and my wife wouldn't let me take it, so I joined an immersive tech company instead.
Very cool.
I'm Julianne Patel. I am a creator of fun with the Wild Optimists, and we specialize in creating puzzles and games that increase audience engagement. So we partner with a wide variety of companies. We've worked with marketing and doing activations. We work with theme parks, and we also work in the tabletop and escape room space. And we, my partner R.L. Rubin is right there, kind of gave ourselves our own start when we launched a Kickstarter. So before that, we both were writers in Hollywood, and we just were super passionate about games and escape rooms, and there was nothing that brought the two of them together, so we thought they should exist together. And so we launched our Kickstarter, and it's all been a great story from there. And so basically, we want to find new ways to play.
Very cool. I've spent years trying to get out of the music business. That's been my escape room. Still have. People ask me, how do I get into the music business? I said, I'll let you in if you let me out. We'll just switch. My name is Ted Cohen. I run a consulting practice called Tag Strategic. I'm also a partner in a firm in Austin called Media Tech Ventures. I've been doing this for a long time. As some of the people here who know me, I have a very in-your-face way of consulting with clients. Instead of saying, there might be another way to approach it, the phrase, "Are you effing kidding me?" comes up a lot, which with some clients works, and with other clients it's a short engagement. I got started in high school managing bands. My first client was a local diva in Cleveland by the name of Eric Carmen, so whenever you hear "All by Myself," I have some blame in that. And I really enjoy what I do now, especially enjoy getting people like this together. We have fun. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Like I said, you all came here for a reason. I'd like somebody in the audience to throw out their first question to the panel. Your hand flew up. Go ahead. The restroom's down the hall. No, sorry, I'm kidding. You, go ahead. Stand up. Yeah, stand up. Talk loudly. Hi, I'm Matt.
French.
Like a virtual library? Or a virtual media center?
Yeah, well, let's definitely connect.
Well, she's not
after,
here to do business
but-
or get new clients.
What
No,
I
I'm
think
kidding.
I can answer that. Let's connect after, so I can go a little bit more depth. But I think just to kind of go along the lines of what I was discussing. So there's a lot of headsets out there. There's a lot of 3D models that we weren't able to use. So basically, when we built all of our displays, we built the hardware because there was nothing out there. And so we have hologram best practices of, there needs to be textures and shading so it looks good in that space that displays on our hologram displays. However, we've noticed there's a lot of clients out there who have built these models, but they can't use them in our space, they can't use them online. And so what we've done is built that back end because we're big believers that we want people to create content and we want it pushed out there. So we've built that software platform where you can take that 3D model, whether if it's an FBX, OBJ, push it up to our cloud, and then there's predetermined gestures and experiences that our platform has that is the output. So we can definitely talk after in more detail.
That's cool. That's very cool.
I think another panelist on the board may actually be able to do connected VR experiences so that you could have up to 20 of your marketers linked together, seeing the exact same type of experience and interact with it or manipulate it in real time.
Is that
Yeah, I can give you my business card afterwards and talk to you about it, but in theory, yes. I mean, the whole point is trying to make VR more social, trying to find ways of people interacting with each other, and that's the direction it's all moving in. And, Ventana do versions of that, and we do versions of that.
the thing you have to avoid? I mean, there's some people I've worked with here. There was a wonderful technology called CDI that a few people remember here. Philips Electronics in the 90s spent $1 billion on it, and for some reason they shut us down. I don't know, something about the billion. But we learned early on that recreating virtual experiences that just mirrored the physical world, the thing that's great about virtual is that you don't have to get on the bus to drive to the Smithsonian and get off the bus and whatever. You can just, teleport from one museum to another. At one point, somebody came up with a virtual banking experience where you got in a virtual line and waited for a virtual teller to take care of you. Didn't go over very well. So you have to think beyond it and what that room might be. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about different experiences, and it's about telling stories, and it's about putting people in places that they can't get to otherwise. So if you've got 15 people in a physical space together who you want to interact with each other, then you could spend lots of money putting some clever technology around it, or you could just ask them to speak to each other. But if you're trying to put people who obviously aren't there into a space to meet with other people who also aren't there, or do it against a backdrop that doesn't really exist there, then that's where you start using this clever technology.
So let me ask, anybody jump in. In terms of VR, are we in a VHS beta war still currently, and is that an impediment to succeeding? So between Oculus headsets, Vive headsets, and other ones that are out there, is there any standardization at this point so that when you're creating, you don't have to create for 5 different platforms?
There is standardization happening for sure. I think that the fidelity of the headsets, especially when it's a PC-driven experience, it remains amazingly high. What we need to get to for there to be mass market adoption is devices need to be wireless, they need to deliver 4K to 8K output, they need to be fully interactive experiences so that people can be mobile and they also need to be a shareable social experience so that multiple users can see the exact same experience and interact with the experience at the same time. We don't see that yet. I think we see a portable, low-resolution headset, and in those types of experiences, those are beneficial to more snackable or kind of a lightweight gaming experience. And so that will continue to be easily adopted by the early adopter audience and a younger audience that are wanting to be in a gaming environment. We won't see mass enterprise level or mass consumer adoption for another couple of years until those devices get higher and higher quality with less tether to a PC-driven experience.
So what do you think the release, I got an email yesterday saying, click here to order your Quest. We're shipping the Oculus Quest that they're shipping next week. Is that, you played with the Quest?
Yep.
Is that going to have a major effect on jump-starting this?
I think it'll continue to drive us forward, but it's not going to be the straw that's going to just break its back.
Barry, you started to say something or no?
Yeah, I think that VR has a long way to go. If anybody follows my LinkedIn, I comment and post a great deal about AR and VR, AR versus VR, and a lot of people say you got to take the versus out because it's all just one continuum. I disagree with that 100%. I also think that VR has its place. I don't think that entertainment is one of them, and I don't think storytelling is one of them. So I'm just setting the stage right here. I think that AR basically is emerging as where VR wanted to be, and I think it's going to continue. And the beauty of AR is that everybody in this room has a device on them today, right now, that can do VR, do AR. You don't have one that can do VR, unless you maybe have a cardboard at home, but most of those are in landfills at this moment. Anyway,
Say the cardboard.
I have no opinion.
You have no opinion.
I mean, at the end of the day, the money for everybody in this room, regardless of what vertical you represent, is in the commodification of experiences. People at some point, like you would rent a movie from iTunes for $4.99, you will rent a trip to Bali and you will feel the sun on your back. We're just not, we are probably 5 to 10 years away from Ready Player One. We're just, the tech isn't there yet.
See, that's a problem because for the past 3 decades, VR has been 10 years away from mass adoption, and it's still not here.
Yes. You want to ask her a question? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that ultimately, I think in terms of AR versus VR, it's always going to boil down to the experience and what is it that people can engage with. I think AR is a bit easier in terms of it's already there. Everyone already has that phone, and it's so simple to put up and have a filter on your face, and it's fun and it's shareable. But as long as you're creating an experience or a game or something that's going to really walk people through and teach them what they need to know in terms of using this technology, they'll be more and more likely to adopt it.
More important than the experience is whether you can monetize it, because if you can't monetize it, it becomes either a hobby or an art project. And in VR, gaming, it's incredibly successful in terms of storytelling. Name me one title that's made an ROI.
That's really.
And to touch on that, just think about the consumer. So our attention spans are now less than a goldfish, which is, goldfish is at 9 seconds, we're at 8 seconds. And so I think we start there and understand when a consumer is, whether walking through a sports stadium, whether walking through a mall, if people still go to malls, or walking through an environment, we're using these different immersive technologies just to capture someone's attention, right? Where you might not, if there's a nice shiny hologram of a shoe floating, that might stop you in your tracks as opposed to a cardboard cutout. So once we've engaged that consumer and caught their attention, now we're bringing them in, but then it goes down to that experience where it is new and it's different. I was just speaking to some of the panelists, seeing people we were at a lot of sports stadiums and the Clippers with our client Lexus, where their whole use case is, first, you can't fit cars into stadiums, so let's make a hologram car and people can experience that car, but also StubHub and Ticketmaster aren't giving Lexus, who's sponsoring the team, all the emails and names of the people coming through. So they're using it as an engagement tool for lead generation to capture those that information. But in addition to that, you know, if someone comes up to it, I've seen people like try to do it, like, your machine's broken. I'm like, well, the machine's not broken. You're just not used to, you know, grabbing air and seeing it react. And I think you're understanding that customer and creating those experience where the brand is monetizing, but you have to think about, for the consumer part, it has to be engaging and different for them to enjoy it. And it's hard medium. And so I think what we're big believers in is understanding that customer and making sure you have a goal when you create that experience, and that goal can lead you to maybe creating a VR experience, maybe an AR experience, maybe a good old-fashioned just experiential experience if that's the case, but making sure you have that goal is going to lead to the success of using the different types of technology.
Go ahead.
So just
And then, then you then.
So just going back to the original question about, you know, which headset and so on, I think there will always be a great use case for headsets for experiences where you need to concentrate. So whether that's high-level gaming and you don't mind paying that much money to be able to do the gaming at the highest level, or we've done some stuff training heart surgeons where you want them to be concentrating on only what they see there because they're learning a new type of heart surgery technique, so you want them to be isolated from everything else. But when you start looking beyond that, I think the initial excitement of headsets is now very old. If you're doing some kind of activation or event, people don't want to line up to do one at a time experiences. They don't want to put on a headset that they now realise has been worn by 50 other sweaty people already that day, in a way that I don't think we did when they were new. So there will always be a place for the headsets, but people in factories don't want to be wearing them for hours. People in shopping malls don't necessarily want to put them on for too long, and that's where some of this social version of VR works better. Things like the holograms and immersing people in domes and in immersive spaces. That's where that real opportunity is.
I worked with a museum in Seattle that called that visitor juice. The repurposing of goggles and the sweat that's inside them. Another thing, just really quickly touching on your headset piece, is kind of the sensitivity of an ego. So putting on a headset is a very solitary experience. And so if you're in a conference setting, or you're in a dealer showroom, or if you're in we've done a lot of work with Procter & Gamble, people don't want to put on a headset and then be alone because they don't know what's happening around them. Are people going to push them? Especially if there's an audio experience, so you can't hear or see anything that's happening around you? Is there an earthquake? Is the building collapsing around you? There's a sensitivity around that. So as you explore VR experiences, I'm not saying don't do that, but be sensitive to that. And also be sensitive to the audience. We find that in super premium audiences, folks that are spending $100,000 or more on a vehicle, we've done a lot of work with high-end real estate, so doing pre-visualization of luxury condos with $5 million price points and up. Those consumers don't want to put a headset on. A woman that has spent money and time getting ready does not want to put a head strap behind her hair and smudge her makeup.
I totally agree. I mean, there's Ritz-Carlton downtown's that way, has a $14 million condo on the top of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was talking to the guy who represented it, and we're talking about, I mentioned VR, and he goes, my clients have no interest in putting on a headset. They would rather see drone footage, they would rather see whatever. But the big selling point was the condo came with free breakfast.
Yep. And that
14 million, but you got free breakfast every day at the Ritz-Carlton.
Yep.
But again, because I said, you should do a VR walkthrough, and he goes, nope, no interest. Yes, Mr. Sandra. Dr. Sandra. Professor.
There's a great story about a brick and mortar company called Best Buy that was just about ready to go out of business. And a guy by the name of Jolly, Herbert Jolly, came in and recognized the fact that people were going into Best Buy, but they weren't buying anything. They were going there to experience the product, and then they were going to Amazon and buying it.
Showrooming.
So what he did was he turned that place around, and he said, okay, if I'm a showroom, I'm going to charge Sony and everybody else for the space, and I'm going to all that. So he turned it into a huge success. But brick and mortar, it nevertheless is going away. I mean, Toys R Us, all of these companies, Sears, they're all going away, and everything is going to e-commerce. And yet there is a desire by the consumer to experience the product that they're going to buy or they want to buy, because the conversion rate on any e-commerce is relatively low. It's about 3%, unless you use augmented reality, where you can actually bring something in your house, see what it looks like in your house, and then the conversion rate goes way up. And that's really, I think, where there's a huge market for augmented reality in e-commerce.
I think
Mike,
there's
I'm sorry,
also
go ahead.
a huge market just in terms of experiential. While malls are failing and retail is having a lot of issues, there's a lot of the experiential space that's growing. So there's this new Area 15 is opening in Vegas, and it's calling itself an immersive bazaar. And it's because people are still looking for an excuse to go out and be with their friends and spend money and have an experience that is different than what they can get at home if they're just buying, online. And so I think there's still a tremendous space to make a lot of money by using this technology to give people experiences out in the world.
Mike, you're next. I'll make one more comment. So Amazon integrated some ARs, as did IKEA, in terms of staging a room. My girlfriend, Maggie, who hasn't called today, she usually calls and I hold the phone up and go, say hi. She knows I'm on the panel, she still calls. She's addicted. Some people are addicted to alcohol. She's addicted to Roomba. We have 4 of them now in the house. They bump into each other. So Roomba came out with a new model, and she goes, "You got to get it. Now it'll tell me when it runs into dirt. It's fantastic." So I sent her a picture of the new Roomba in the living room. It was basically a digital prank. It was the AR. It showed the Roomba with a perfect drop shadow. It matched, it looked at the room, it put the Roomba on the floor, scaled to what the size of the room, and she goes, "You got it." When she came home, it wasn't there. It will work, and she still wants it. You had the question, and then you're up next. Yes, sir.
I'd love to hear from the panel, particularly, thanks to Tasha and Grant for bringing it back a little bit to advertising and branding.
Yes.
As a strategy. I'd love to hear from each of you on the panel, something either that you've done that you're particularly passionate about, or that you've seen in the marketplace that you thought was particularly special in utilizing AR, VR, XR in some fashion that worked as an advertising and branding strategy.
They will do it if at the end of it I can turn to you, tell me the ones you've seen that suck. Go ahead. What have you seen that you really like, that you've been involved in, and something you're jealous that you wish you would have done?
Let's see. A lot of what we're doing right now, especially for marketing and branding, is to try to, and I'm gonna pick on you a little bit because I think you're really onto it about the experiences and the platforms. Across all of our brands, we're trying to get away from one-off experiences. We're trying to look at efficiency plays. So when you're looking at something like, I'm going to pick on an auto brand because I work on it a lot. When you're looking at an experiential activation that could happen at just an auto show versus it could happen in a dealership versus it could tie into marketing in a consumer's home, how can you re-platform that entire experience, move it up one level, and actually incorporate it into the endemic experience of the consumer's path to purchase? So I realize that I have a lease that's about to end. I now have an augmented reality device in my hand. I can go out to my driveway, I can scan my 2016 vehicle, and then I can have it overlaid with a 2019 vehicle. I can see all the differences in the tech, I can see all the differences in the design. I can then build that car, I can send it to my dealership. My dealer can actually see if they have that in their inventory. Then they can see if they can contact me and say, hey, I've got one on my lot, I don't have one on my lot, it's 50 miles away, I'll bring it to you. They can bring it to their home, it's kind of the Tesla model. And then we can also ladder in experiential experiences around that. So for brands, whether that's I just use an auto example, but that works for CPG, that works for QSRs. I think it's anyone who is really looking at integrating immersive technology into their core marketing strategy. I'm wowed and impressed by that. I do a lot of work with Lexus and Toyota because we're based down at Team One. So I'm admiring the creatives and the tech innovation that's happening in my own building. Outside of that, I was just involved in something for Miller Coors, where basically for their St. Patrick's Day promotions, all their bottles, all their steins, you could actually scan the Miller Coors logo. A leprechaun would kind of like kick open the logo and then like come walking out onto the table. I thought that was kind of a kitschy way to kind of get people involved and also have them look for a scannable logo, whether it be on a bus or on a billboard, things like that. And then things that I'm really impressed by right now, not related to I'll do an on-brand one and an off. If you haven't been to the Alien Zoo at Century City, I suggest you do it. Social VR, it's really, really impressive. I took 2 kids and 2 friends, and I was just blown away by the fidelity of the experience, and also that I could see my own feet. That's you could see your feet in an experience. That's pretty fucking awesome. And then from a brand that I'm jealous I wasn't involved in, you're putting me on the spot. I'd have to think about this some more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we go, do we need a Starbucks of social VR to bring it home? Because I was on Hollywood Boulevard the other day going for a very long walk, and I got talked into going into a VR lounge on Hollywood Boulevard, and I felt like I had gone to a carnival and they were trying to sell me, do you want to see the bearded lady? They had good technology, but it felt like a hustle. The one you're talking about obviously is a more upscale experience.
Yeah, it's a much more upscale experience. So it's a 5-minute experience. You and 5 other people actually can upload yourself into this experience, and then you can walk around and touch, play, wander. You're kind of taken on a little journey. It's a fully immersive shared reality experience that I'm pretty impressed by. When it comes to social cafes, Facebook's probably going to delete my whole life for saying this, but I think we went too far to rewind 10 years to avatars. Right. I think we're a long way from a shared social experience.
Tasha?
And to expense, actually kind of cool. We've worked together before where I've actually taken Grant's
This wasn't planned.
Work. It is not, and he's the one who provided me my FBX file, and we were able to take that Lexus and turn it into a hologram. And just to end on where I was going was, it started at one stadium, and the success rate where they were doubling their qualified leads, we expanded to over 14 stadiums across the country in a 3-year experience where they were able to easily switch out team logos. So we're trying to make it simple where you can reuse that content. So that was just one to end the story on the Lexus end. I'm just going to touch on 2 things. One, going back to that goal. So we worked with Adidas where their main goal, they were launching the Stella McCartney spring line. And they had access to Stella, and she works with a lot of influencers on the workout side. So to make a VIP, and that's where we see a lot of brands using these experiences, is creating these VIP experiences that you could never really go and have if you walk into a store. So Stella, we recorded one of her HIIT instructors, a running instructor, a yoga instructor, and we went around the world doing hologram workouts. So if you bought one of the pieces of clothing, you went into the store and they partnered with yoga studios or different workout areas. So we had our life size. Stella welcomed you, and we had a class every hour on the hour to come do these workouts. One of my favorite was in Shanghai, where we had a running instructor and we projected Map Paris. So all the instructors that were from New York only taught classes in Europe and vice versa. So it was really a one-of-a-kind experience. So it looked like you were running through the streets of Paris and with the hologram instructor in front of you while you're in Shanghai. And then afterwards, we had one of our smaller displays, and everyone got to do like yoga moves, and they got a little hologram on their phone that they can take home as that takeaway. So on the experiential side, that was really just to get people excited about the brand, have them a chance to take a class with Stella, which is pretty impossible because I don't even know if she actually teaches classes. So, it's creating that VIP. Where on the other side, we're starting to work with a lot of on the retail front with jewelry companies. We work with one client right now who has 150 plus rings in 50 stores around the country, but not every store actually is offering every ring. So they're currently using our Product Explorer platform where they're directly uploading all of their models onto our new touchscreen display. So imagine like a gigantic iPad that you can touch and move around. and people get to experience those pieces of jewelry and then can email themselves the one they like. So now that's the data collection. We also have a camera and can collect the response that they have on the product and get that age range and gender. So it goes back down to, for my successes that we've seen, is if you're gonna want that headline, first ever hologram yoga, you go big. If you want that lead gen, you do something that's really gonna capture that individual walking into the store. So now you have a call to action or a point of sale on that end. And if you want the social sharing piece, make sure that takeaway is just so fun that, we just did hologram of Kobe Bryant in Shanghai, where you can take a selfie with him, and it's you in front of Staples Center with Kobe that you can share. So make it shareable. So I would just really make sure you have those goals while you're thinking about the content.
And what do you admire that somebody else did that you didn't do?
Well, I just heard yesterday that there is an app that you can, an AR app that it shows you if your luggage would fit on the plane. And I thought that was really cool because last week I was in the flight and I literally saw a man get in a fight with an agent over his luggage. And he literally, I was like, oh my God, I just don't delay my flight. But he definitely could have used that app, but I thought that was really, really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, that was one thing I posted that on LinkedIn once, and forgive me, but I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I ever heard of, because what you try to do is hide your stuff so that people don't know that it's too big. So last thing I want.
Well, for the non-experts.
So, again, what are things something you've done you're very proud of, and something you saw that you're very jealous of?
So,
and then he has to tell us what sucks.
So, it's something we're doing at the moment. Who here drinks whiskey? Excellent. Good. So I'm obsessed with whiskey and have been for a long time. I host whiskey tastings. I've got a whiskey podcast. I drink lots of whiskey.
What's your email address?
And so I've been to lots of whiskey tastings, and there's a project we're working on at the moment where, so we've got a floor-to-ceiling dome, and we're shooting in a distillery in Scotland. So here we are in America. And this is mixed reality in the sense of mixing real life with immersion rather than mixing different types of immersive tech. So you go into the dome, there's a table in there, there's real whiskey on the table, the place smells of whiskey, you look around and there are barrels and there are old men shoveling things and all the things that you would see if you were in a real distillery, and then you drink the whiskey. So in terms of sort of a marketing play for a high-end drinks product, you're taking people to the place it's made as much as you can, and then they're still drinking the whiskey. So it's just, instead of just doing it in a nice hotel room, you're doing it, or a nice conference center, you're in the distillery. So it's about taking people to a place that they're not, but you can do it together. So if you're wearing a headset, you'd struggle to find your mouth while drinking. But because you're in the shared experience, you can look up, you can look to the side, you can see your friends or your colleagues enjoying the experience, but you're also in Scotland. And obviously that works for any drink, that can work for food experiences, the same thing. So you can have a meal in there, and you could eat your French onion soup in Paris, and you can eat your Yorkshire beef in the hills of Yorkshire, and you can have your tiramisu in Italy. So you can just change the environment, so you're doing something real, but you're immersed in somewhere else completely different. And I think that for me is one of it's one of my passion projects. I just want to get some whiskey in and combine it with our technology. But that principle, it ticks a lot of the boxes in terms of using immersive technology in a sales conversion way that creates an experience that is unique and memorable and shareable.
So let me ask you a question. When we met an hour ago, you talked about something. I'm going to use this room, and excuse my French. This room is incredibly fucking boring. The ceiling's interesting, but the rest of it's a drag. We're at a tech conference. How hard would it be to digitally map this room to put us in in Ready Player One, and just to make the room more interesting, so it felt like because I was at a conference in Vegas, and we're talking about all this immersive experience, and it's a bunch of beige walls.
Yeah, so we're doing various versions of this with Conference Center. We've done a thing in an innovation center. It's a medical company in an innovation center in Utah, but their conference room, when you sit down there, on 3 walls, you've got the plains of Africa with elephants walking through them. And elephants have no relevance to medical technology, but they wanted to create a distracting and relaxing environment for them to do innovation, and they bring conferences in and they do all that stuff. And we've shot in all sorts of other locations, and we're just adding to their portfolio of just changing the wall. So we're doing conference centres, we're doing hospital waiting rooms, we are doing boardrooms, we are working on some stuff around classrooms. So it's not that hard. I mean, obviously, depending on the light and the size of the room and the shape, it becomes more or less complicated and more or less expensive.
But it's got to look better than this.
But projecting onto one wall and then changing it, and that's the thing. So we're doing a private dining room for a high-end restaurant, and you can eat in a different backdrop every night, or theoretically every course, depending on how much distraction people want. So, the technology's there for it, and it's you can do it very simply on one wall with a projector. Where it's more fun is where there's multiple walls, or there's an interaction. So you've got some backdrop there, and then you go up to it and something happens. So we did a thing at a trade show with a forest, and you go up there and the deer run away when you walk past, and the fish that are swimming around on the floor move away from your feet when you walk past them. So you can make it interactive as well.
And what have you seen that you really admire that you had nothing to do with?
So there's one that I actually saw it yesterday. I think it was on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and it's about mixed reality. So it's something done in London by British Airways, and I don't know the detail of it, but it's an advert in the middle of London, and there's a little boy that appears on the screen, and hopefully there's also a little girl if they swatch it out, but the video I saw was just a little boy. And when a real plane flies over, the kid points at it, and it says, this is the flight, this is BA, whatever it is, flying in from Barcelona. And then when the plane's gone past, the kid disappears and then comes back again for the next plane, which is a brilliant piece of advertising for BA. It's again mixing real life with, and it's not really immersion, but it's just a very clever trick. And obviously you could do it, In-N-Out could put a huge one of those above their store down at LAX, and you could have the same thing where you're identifying the planes that come in really low. I think would be a great experience.
Fantastic. Julianne?
Yeah, one thing that we're working on right now is with the Santa Monica Pier, and it's for their historical tour. And so we're working to find ways to really bring the history alive. And so AR is the perfect use here because we can actually have it in their hands. They're there, they're looking at what is right in front of them, and then using AR on their phone, they can actually see what it used to look like back in the day. So the final experience at the end of this tour, you're going to be able to have a filter where you're actually seeing you and your friends and everyone you just did this fun experience with, and it's working through. You see on one side is the current state of the pier, and on the other side is the history. So it's a way to really put people in the history and make them feel involved. And then again, it has that shareable piece where they want to go and tell all of their friends what they did. And then in terms of something that I'm jealous of, I heard that the other day, L'Oreal had this activation where you could kind of try out all the different makeups that they have, and that they got a ton of really fantastic data from that. I thought that was just such a simple, clear, easy way. I'm always looking for ways where people kind of already know what they're looking to do, and they get to play in AR in a new way, and it just made so much sense.
Very cool. How many of you went to 7-Eleven to play with Pikachu? Anybody? No one. That was a big movie activation. The Pikachu Detective, you went to 7-Eleven. My son did it, told me it was cool. But nobody went. My son went. No, I meant to go, it's a long story. Believe me, my son tells me to stop playing with my toys. But during the Olympics, and Barry and I talked about this a few months ago, during the Summer Olympics last year, Intel did True VR, and every time you're watching the Olympics, it's saying go download the Intel True VR app and experience the Olympics in VR. There were 5,000 downloads globally.
I know, globally.
Why did that miss so badly? Why was no one interested?
There's an echo chamber where people think that professionals think that people are interested in VR and they're not.
Okay, but okay, now you have to finish the deal. What do you like and what sucked?
I'll tell you what sucked is super easy. Jumanji, the VR promotion that they tried to make for that movie was horrible. I think people that simply had no understanding of what to create. They feel considering the IP that they have, they could have done a much, much better job. As for what I've seen recently that I thought was really clever, another whiskey promotion, I can't remember. I can't remember. It's
whiskey.
Jack Daniels, where it was an AR element, and you scanned the label, beautiful black and white pencil drawn art with a Pier in front of the bottle. Absolutely stunning. And easily I could see myself like just setting up the bottle, having my phone in front of it, zooming in and out while I'm sipping a whiskey. I can picture it.
Ted?
So yeah, I think there are fantastic applications, but to everyone's point on the panel, it's got to be thought out exactly. What are you trying to get out of it? What is the ultimate result that you want to have happen for creating that application? And then creating creative that supports that.
So I was speaking at yet another conference 3 weeks ago in Miami, and T-Mobile had a exhibit called the T-Mobile Tech Experience, and you had to experience their version of 5G, which will be 2 years from now, and you got a baseball cap, and on the baseball cap there was a T-Mobile logo, and they said download the T-Mobile AR experience and have the thing. So I go back to the hotel, I'm bored before we were going out, I download it and I point the phone at the T-Mobile baseball cap, and T-Mobile logos come out of the smokestacks on this Peterbilt truck that's on the front of the hat. And then I start moving the phone around the room, and that was it. And I went back the next day and I said, did I miss something? Nope, that's what it does. And I said, so if you're showing people AR for the first time and all it's doing is having little animated T-Mobile logos pour out of a smokestack, and they think that's what AR is, that was the biggest disappointment I've ever seen. Sir, you had a question. You've been very patient.
I just wanted to touch
You
on
built
one
that,
other
and I'm very
thing.
sorry. No.
So it's interesting. Everyone's like, "What's the worst experience? What's the best experience?" I always like to take a step back because all of us are very tough audiences. Like, we want everything now. We want an app to download in like 7 seconds. If it's 8, you're like, I'm done. And I think that's really important when we're exposing all these new experiences. Like, I literally fell VR skiing once, like 5 years ago. And it was a very traumatizing experience, but I had a headset on. My friend's like, it'll be fun. And I put it on, and all of a sudden I ski, like in real life. I put it on, and he's like, look down, I see my skis, and he goes, okay, and all of a sudden I'm like going down a hill at 100 miles per hour, and then within seconds I'm going off a ramp. My knees buckled, I like threw it off, and I'm like, I don't ski jump, it was just, my body just can't, it was just very traumatic, but I survived, but it was like, that experience was, so different where I'm going to go back, and it took me a while to try VR because I was first embarrassed because there was like 20 people around me, and I thank God I was wearing flats that day, but it was just like, you need to make sure that the experience meets we're all going to have bad experiences. We had an experience where we were, the client didn't tell us that most of the people in the room were 70 plus, and when you're building you moving things around, they don't want to close their hands or move things, and they don't get that, and it was a complete failure, right? And so we built an experience where you throw a football at SpongeBob, and our developers first developed it, and I go in the back, and I was like, I can't reach the football, guys, because I'm basically child height, and I'm like, you guys have to realize that the football has to come down because this is for kids at the Super Bowl, and I was like, oh, and thank God I went and tested it, right, because that would have been a complete failure. But I think when we think about that, we need there are going to be some tests and trials and errors, and so make sure, think about, put yourself in your shoes if you're trying to think about it. Don't just check the box and say, let's use XR, VR, AR. Really think about who that customer is. Would you enjoy doing that? Because it is new, and we have a tough audience on the other end of what they're expecting, and so I always like to give some leniency, or for example, tell Jumanji that, I love when people give me feedback of was that enjoyable or was that horrible, because I want to make sure as we build this that people like it, and so we can build more of it.
I want to answer that guy's question because he's had it since the beginning, but I think you raise a really good point with T-Mobile and their app. I need another app on my phone, I need a bullet in my head.
Right.
5G is probably what we need to pin the conversation on, because 5G is going
that's my last
to
question.
dramatically change everything.
The effect of 5G.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But your question, sir, don't pause. Yes.
Warren, I want to know about downloading and picking up the music at the same time.
So they're picking up things in a location-based scavenger hunt that they can then redeem or experience when they go to the concert?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can
That could
actually
be
look at this
done.
two ways. So if you're using data from somewhere like a Foursquare can actually target your mobile device down to about 4 feet from your
Yep.
location. So you can actually say, like, I'm walking into a Walmart, now give me all the specials for the day. Walmart was a bad example, I'm sorry. But what we're starting to see is, like, we can call it technology graffiti. So you would have something like a visual trigger, like an AR trigger. You would maybe do some kind of art piece on the side of a building. You would tell someone, you'd promote that piece. People would go to it. They'd hold their phones up. That would come to life and be a music video. That is one way that we've done it. A secondary way is that you would have people just get a little pop-up on their phone that says you're entering this space, and then they can look down and they can see that experience come to life on their devices.
Barry.
Jackson Pollock has a wing in New York Museum of Modern Art, and one innovative young artist, an unknown artist, had an app made, an AR app, and invited a bunch of his friends to download it. And what it did was, when you go into the Jackson Pollock wing of the museum, every one of Jackson Pollock's pictures or his paintings becomes a target for this unknown artist's painting. So he basically had his own
He hacked the Jackson Pollock.
he had his own private art
Love it.
show.
The Louvre is doing something where they're letting you see a lot of the paintings that aren't on display.
Right.
You can go into the archives using AR.
Yeah.
I think in the world we're in now, there's so much content out there. Increasingly, we're seeing this need to create some kind of exclusivity. So whether it's geographic exclusivity, so you can only activate this technology if you're physically there. So whether that is using geolocation or physical markers. So we've done sort of dinosaur scavenger hunts where you have to find the paw prints in a certain place, and then you get to activate that content, and then you can share it. But also just exclusivity anyway. You join a club and they send you something, and somebody appears on your kitchen table and thanks you for buying a ticket for an event or subscribing to an event. Or we're doing some stuff with the sports team at the moment where if you're physically in the venue and you've got the app, the poster, which is just a normal poster, comes to life and tells you who the starters are in the basketball game that night. But only you get that information that way. So I think there's a lot about, because there's some, the Pokemon Go was obviously a great model and took AR forward a long way, but in terms of this trying to, as what Barry said about trying to monetize and commoditize and find ways of making this work, finding something exclusive, and it can be any type of exclusivity. That's where brands are going, and that's what people are increasingly wanting.
I think
In a similar area, I talked to one hotel chain about using art in the hotel room to trigger experiences for their guests, but based on their level, if they were gold or platinum or whatever, they would get a coupon that they would capture by pointing it at a piece of art in the room. And the coupon that I might get might be different than the coupon that you get because you're a Bonvoy? You're a Marriott Bonvoy Ultra Platinum client. So you're getting a higher experience than I'm getting out of the same trigger.
I think it's about creating investment too. The more people are invested in whatever the content is, they're going to hate to lose it. So if they took the first step and they had to go and find that content for the music video, they're already invested because they found it. I found it, you didn't. So I have now this special access. If you put in more interactions, with puzzles or games or something like that, where you can say, not only did I find it, but then I actually had to do the work and solve it. So I know more about this artist now because I learned about them through this experience that I had in AR. They are going to be so much more invested. They're actually going to become the ambassador and tell their friends all about this artist and how they have to check out this content because now they're the expert in it after they learned about it through play.
Cool. Yes, sir.
I do believe in VR. I think it's going to be a lot bigger than some people are saying. But I think the biggest obstacle is kids, right? They're the early adopters, right? AR didn't take off until Pokemon Go. But I just got the Quest, and I'm looking through the health data. The report says 13 and over. So what have you guys learned from VR and marketing acquisitions
Well, they're saying 13 and over because they don't want to deal with COPA restrictions. I mean, if you can go younger than 13, but then you go through a bunch of hoops to say that it's child safe and whatever. But if you say 13 and older, then it removes a lot of legal stuff you have to deal with.
We found through a number of activations that it's a parental consent. Children's eyes are still developing, so you want to be sensitive to light and time spent. For a branded activation, they're probably in there for anywhere between 3 and 5 minutes. That's not going to make someone have a long-term negative effects on their eyesight, but it is something you want to be cognizant of. You definitely want to be cognizant of promotion restrictions and things like that. But yeah, I mean, for at-home use, when a 6-year-old runs to their parents asking for a headset instead of an iPhone, that's when we're going to start to see the scales tip in our direction.
Very cool. You had a question here?
Yes, about apps. How do you overcome this? People don't want to download. How do you, and there's no standard analysis field out there. How do you overcome that problem, or what do you think?
Back to Molly.
Well, Nextech AR Solutions, for one, in several other...
The question was, people are resistant to download new apps, just because of what Brent said about, I need another app like I need a whatever. So how can you have the experience trigger without a, significant download?
It's getting more and more so that browser-based AR is coming around, and Nextech AR Solutions already has that for e-commerce and that sort of thing, so that anybody who has an e-commerce site can go into their platform and actually author what they need, get their product that's already been volumized, and include that so that when a customer goes onto their site, they can just click on it and you can see it. So you don't have to download anything. That's happening now.
So this gentleman down here in front has a Magic Leap headset.
Magic Leap.
Cool.
Of faith.
Did you buy it?
I bought one, I'm going to see maybe
Okay. Oh, see, I can have the other one. Okay, good. What's your experience with it so far? Are you happy with it? Does it live up to expectation? Does it? Because how many people in the room have put on a Magic Leap headset? Oh, wow, more than I would. So you all went to LeapCon or something like that? Cool.
after looking at the battle reviews.
Right.
And to me, it's a miracle, okay? Because there is no lightweight, commercially available prototype.
Right.
HoloLens is way too big. And we've got to wait 6 months for Connect and the next one.
Right.
So I'm happy with this, of course. When we get to the Wayfair, Ray-Ban, Barney's,
Right.
in a couple of years, everybody's going to be wearing it. But, for now...
But so, is there enough to keep your interest?
Oh, yeah. See, I can make any app in Unity. So I can make an app in Unity. I can anything, anytime, game anything, and play it in the room. And
Okay.
They're just coming out with Game of Thrones. That came out, the short little version. It's an 18 pieces,
Right.
and it just arrived in the Westfield Mall this last couple of days. There's a Star Wars board game. A kid on GitHub made a lightsaber, and the Luke Skywalker scene, the Millennium Falcon,
Right.
the Fox going, just a kid made that. The ILM made the port where you feed the port, but I like the saber, And then it's a slow roll, and it's a prototype, but there's enough to keep you busy. And
If it wasn't given to you, would you have spent the $2,500?
I bought it the first version.
Oh, you did?
And then I went to the con, and I wanted to show a lot of people on hold and stuff, so
So an old friend of mine ended up working on Vive, and he sent me a system, and for the first month, we were totally engaged, and we show it to people when they come over. The rest of the time, it's, what?
it's been since August.
Yeah.
Well, for $2.5 billion, you would hope that something would be there.
Right. Exactly. We'll take one more question, and then we want to talk about 5G. Arm wrestle her. No, go ahead. You go first. Near return before the hardware gets to the point that it's mass adoption for everybody. What? On the music side, the Dome downtown that's doing the Pink Floyd stuff has gotten a lot of uptake and really gets people, at least whets their appetite for, you know. It's not branding. Well, I mean, they're trying to syndicate, they're trying to make it a brand of these domes around the country.
Yeah. Again, 95% of us have a device that can display AR today. And our cell phones are an extension of ourselves. People used to say nobody's going to watch a movie on one. Everybody watches movies on them. And using them as a display device for AR, immersive AR, and branding AR is going to become ubiquitous, I believe. It's already there. I mean, there's no barrier to entry. None.
So, for me, I don't want to do a Game of Thrones spoiler, but there was a quote in the finale of Game of Thrones where one of the characters said, "There's nothing more powerful than a story."
You've ruined it.
And
You've ruined it. I haven't watched it. You've ruined it.
Okay, really quickly though, happy with the ending, hands. Unhappy with the ending. Who cares?
So,
Sorry, I interrupted.
the point is, certainly for us, the way we see it, we're a storytelling company. So, in terms of our sort of business model, we're deliberately positioning ourselves where we're technologically and platform agnostic, because the technology is going to change, and whether it's versions of what Magic Leap are doing, or they find ways of making the actual Princess Leia technology work, or the hologram stuff's moved forward. At the end of the day, it's just about storytelling. So in the near term, we're creating different canvases to tell a story, and as the technology gets more advanced, we'll tell the story in a different way. So, for now, things like, non-headset VR experiences for marketing, so more people can do it at once, like holograms, like domes, like immersive rooms. That's what it's all about, I think, for me. So it's, I'm not really answering your question in the sense of it almost doesn't matter what the technology is. It's about the quality of the content, the quality of the story you're telling, and how you engage people. And even, non-digital marketing plays still work incredibly well, because it is about engagement and storytelling and content. And it's just about, the companies that will do well will be the ones who can find a way of making the most of whatever that technology is, and not become dependent on one, because when the world moves on, they're going to get left behind.
Right.
To Dan's point, I think, just to add on to that, I think you just add a transactional element. So when you're exploring this avenue, whether you're using, I would say to take, if you're going to go the AR route, include a mobile strategy, and just make it transactional, or some kind of data capture. Same with lifestyle components or experiential. VR in and of itself is an experiential activation. So the time that your users spend with that type of experience, or can you capture their email to drive something into your pipeline so that you can follow up with them? Are they experiencing something they can give feedback on, like a new piece of furniture, a new piece of clothing, a product they don't have an experience with previously? All of those are data points that you can start to collect. Look at it less as, it is at its heart a content and entertainment experience, but also look at it as a way to access kind of the deepest level of consumer interaction. When you put on a headset or you do an AR experience, you're having a visceral reaction to something. If you're in an AR and you're looking at a portal and you're looking around Bali through your phone, you're seeing something you've never seen before. You're having an experience you've never felt before. That you're accessing a deep-seated emotion within your consumer. So, tap into that, collect information from that. And at the easiest point, make it transactional, make them give you an email address for having the experience.
I forgot one other epic failure. We'll take your question, and they told us we could go a few minutes over because the room's available, and we're going to talk about 5G in a moment. When Amazon came out with the Alexa Look, and the proposition was that you or me would stand in our underwear in front of a camera, and it would texture map clothes on us. Yes, I'm going to stand in front of a camera and believe that there's no one back in Seattle watching. I bought one for $40 when they killed it for the collection. I gave it to my girlfriend. She only uses it to do makeup selfies, and because it has a lighting in it. But I don't know if anybody ever played with the Alexa Look, but it was a disaster, because it literally was asking you, just stand there and we'll put clothes on you. Let's talk, like, you had a quick question, and then we'll do a 5G wrap-up.
Okay, so earlier we were talking about the 4K and 8K videos for the VR headset, and that's where the headset will become more popular.
And that's where you're going to need 5G.
Exactly, but the thing is, why do we need the wireless technology for a VR headset, but still you need to be in a controlled environment, otherwise you're not safe to be moving while the headset is on. So
All VR headsets are going to need, all full VR enclosures will need some kind of parameters for the limits that you can go. Like, you're never going to want to just, roam out into the world and then, you're standing on the 101 having a VR experience.
I was excited about the Santa Monica Pier because there's people like to tell them that the pier
Like
is 10 feet
lemmings,
longer
just
than
walking
it is.
off the end of the pier.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Pier, just keep walking. The pier's there.
When we talk about 4K and 8K fidelity, that's just, really it's about latency. You don't want to get people sick. But 8K, the higher the perspective of vision, the more you're going to believe you're there. And the reason that I'm pushing, personally pushing non-tethered mobile experiences is nothing reminds you that you are not in a real setting than having a cord hanging off the back of your head. And there's so many other components to that, and I know we're wrapping up, but there's the fidelity of the experience, there's the resolution of the lenses, there's the peripheral intake that you're seeing within the headset itself, there's the weight of the headset on your face that makes you realize that there's something on your face. All of those are things that we will start to see overcome. I think you made a really good point. We've been saying 10 years for 20 years. But like server size, like iPhones, like mobile technology, there's going to be something. There are guaranteed, 2 dudes in a basement right now that are about to change the world. So, we just have to this is where we put the hope in technology.
So extend right now, jump into, because we got to wrap. How important is the rollout of 5G to the success of AR and VR?
5G will change everything. Mobile devices will now have gigabit speeds, and that means that we can deliver you higher fidelity entertainment, higher weight streaming entertainment. It means that Google Stadia can actually do offsite rendering and delivery of a video game onto a mobile device, and that means that every single device that you have access to will have a mind-blowing capacity to do exponentially more than it does today. So your Teslas will be able to have streaming gigabit connections, so you're watching TV while your car drives itself. Fucking amazing. You're going to be able to have full VR, AR experiences, driving real world, high fidelity experiences on your mobile devices. All of that is going to mean that you're going to have a lesser dependence on the size of the hardware that you have in your hands. So our mobile devices will get smaller, our batteries will last longer, our dependency on applications. All of us have probably 100 apps on our phone that we don't even know until you're on an 8-hour flight and you're like, let me dive into these folders I haven't opened forever. All of those will go away. It should mean a more elegant experience across all of our technologies.
Well, first, it might be 2 girls in a basement that are developing this as
Sorry,
well.
2. It actually could be. I am so sorry.
Or it could be girl and a guy.
It could be girl, guy. It could be a them, they, there.
Non-binary. Yeah.
So in the she shed, not in the man
One
cave.
thing
Yes.
I think that's really important for all of you have been consumers of this, but on the back end, all of this content development, the rendering, how it's getting to you, that is where 5G is really going to help that process, make it more seamless. We have an AI hologram concierge. You can ask it questions to talk to you. There's a little bit of a delay. If you were on a phone with the agent and there was a delay, you'd be yelling right at that person. So with all of the speed, it will make those processes and experiences more seamless and also more real life. And I think that's kind of when you look at the content piece. So touching on that, I think, is understanding the back-end process of how it's getting to you and how all of these new technologies, even sensors, are going to make these experiences better once they come out. And all of that is going to be a combination of more seamless experiences on the consumer experience side.
I think 5G is going to significantly help AR become ubiquitous, but we could have 10G and it doesn't really matter unless the content can be monetized.
Agreed.
Yeah, look, it's all of the above. It'd be the equivalent of when Barry turned films from black and white into colour. It'll just make all of these experiences much better, and if the storytelling and the content is there, then it'll just be a richer, easier to share, easier to access, easier to monetize, more exciting for everyone proposition.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I think it's about designing to the current restraints that you have. So saying, here's where the technology is, so I'm going to design for that, and as it moves forward, we get to keep exploring and playing even more.
Totally agree. In closing, a few years ago, I gave a keynote at CTIA, and the interviewer said to me, what's the next feature you want on your cell phone? And I go, the ability to finish a call before the call dropping. So I think with 5G, we'll finally get past that. Let me ask Barry, this is just a really off-the-wall question, then we're done. Could you possibly have an app using 5G that would take a 2D movie and at least give you some 3D effects? Could you, or do you?
Yeah, well, actually, Facebook has an app that simulates that to a certain extent.
Right.
And as a matter of fact,
Well, I've said play with it. We'll take the clunkiness out of that?
it could, but it's not. You're not going to have a 3D experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any final thing? Did we answer all your questions? Are you more knowledgeable? Now go eat. Have fun. Thanks, everybody.